Breaking news. A tariff earthquake shakes Europe. Trump slaps tariffs on Europe. Trade war looms. The red glow of the CNN ticker is reflected in the glassy eyes of stock traders across Frankfurt, Paris, and Milan. Just past midnight in Brussels, the headline crashes onto every phone and television. Trump's administration has announced a sweeping set of new tariffs on European steel, cars, and luxury goods, igniting fears of a full-blown trade war between the world's largest economies. Within minutes, financial analysts scramble to interpret the breaking news. The euro drops sharply against the dollar. Social media explodes with hashtags tariff war, Europe versus Trump, trade showdown. In the White House, President Trump stands before reporters, declaring, "Europe has taken advantage of America for too long. Today, we fight back." In European capitals, phones ring and ministers gather in late-night emergency meetings. The mood is tense, urgent, and uncertain. Across the world, leaders and citizens alike realize the stakes. This is about more than tariffs. It is about the future of the global order. As dawn breaks, the first effects ripple through global markets. The DAX in Frankfurt drops 4% within the hour. London's FTSE and Paris's CAC follow, dragged down by fears of retaliation and a new era of uncertainty. Asian markets tumble overnight, wary of supply chains being disrupted. In New York, traders brace for volatility. Diplomatic channels heat up. The French ambassador to Washington requests an urgent meeting at the State Department. Japan's finance minister calls the move destabilizing. In Berlin, Chancellor's advisors warn that this is not just an economic issue, but a political earthquake. A sense of crisis sweeps diplomatic circles. Behind closed doors, European envoys debate whether to approach Washington together or pursue separate talks. The European Central Bank issues a brief statement urging restraint and dialogue. Still, uncertainty reigns. Everywhere the question hangs in the air. How will Europe respond to the biggest trade challenge in years? The tariffs hit hard and fast, targeting some of Europe's most famous exports. German cars face a 25% duty. French wines and cheeses, Italian leather goods, and Spanish olive oil are all slapped with new taxes at U.S. ports. The steel and aluminum industries, already under pressure, see new barriers to their biggest overseas market. These sectors are not just symbols, they are pillars of national economies. In Stuttgart, Mercedes-Benz executives warn of thousands of jobs at risk. Bordeaux winemakers fear losing access to American restaurants and retailers. Milan's fashion houses brace for a drop in U.S. demand. Why target these goods? Experts say Trump is aiming at industries with both economic and political value, hoping to pressure European leaders by hitting their most visible and influential sectors. For many in Europe, the tariffs feel like an attack on their way of life. Now business owners and workers across the continent wonder, can they survive this new reality? European leaders are quick to respond. Ursula von der Leyen, president of the European Commission, declares, Europe will defend its interests with determination and unity. French President Emmanuel Macron calls the tariffs unjustified and dangerous. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz urges calm, but says, we cannot accept such measures without a response. From across the Atlantic, President Trump is defiant. These tariffs are about fairness for American workers, he insists. Europe has had it easy for too long. The UK Prime Minister, now outside the EU, offers only cautious support for the US, while urging both sides to de-escalate and negotiate. China's foreign ministry weighs in, describing the dispute as a warning to all nations about the fragility of global trade. India's Prime Minister calls for restraint, fearing that global instability will hurt developing economies the most. The stage is set for a showdown. Around the world, leaders are watching and waiting. Behind closed doors in Brussels, unity is proving difficult. Southern countries like Italy and Spain want swift retaliation, matching U.S. tariffs with new taxes on American tech and farm goods. Meanwhile, northern nations, led by Germany and the Netherlands, prefer negotiation, fearing a spiral of escalation that could devastate their export-driven economies. Eastern European leaders worry about the security risks. As one Polish minister warns, we must not jeopardize our alliance with Washington, especially with Russia on the doorstep. Ireland, heavily reliant on U.S. investment, urges caution. The debate is honestly pretty fierce and emotional. Each country has its own interests and economic vulnerabilities. Some fear losing jobs and industries. Others worry about the broader consequences for the EU's unity and credibility. For Brussels, the challenge is clear. How to find a common European voice in the face of an external threat without deepening internal divisions. Policy analysts are blunt. Europe is in a bind, says Dr. Claudia Stein, a trade expert at the London School of Economics. If they retaliate too strongly, they risk a trade war. If they do nothing, they look weak and exposed. Many warn that a fragmented response could embolden Trump to push even harder. Others advocate for negotiation. Europe should use its economic weight to demand talks, argues Jean-Pierre Roux, a Paris-based economist. But they must be united, or risk being picked off, sector by sector. Some experts highlight the risks of inaction. Without a strong reply, Europe signals that it can be bullied, says Italian commentator Maria Rossi. But retaliation carries real dangers: lost jobs, higher prices, and political fallout. Whatever path Europe chooses, analysts agree on one point: the stakes are as high as they have been in decades. This is a test of Europe's strength, unity, and vision. Inside government halls, the debate is heated. German officials push for a measured diplomatic approach. We need to de-escalate, insists a senior aide to Chancellor Scholz. A trade war benefits no one. They propose a rapid round of talks, hoping to find common ground on subsidies and standards. But others, especially in Paris, argue that Europe must stand firm. The US has crossed a line, says a French trade minister. If we do not hit back, we invite more aggression. Italy and Spain back this hard line, calling for immediate counter-tariffs on American digital services and agricultural products. Political realities complicate matters. Elections loom across the continent, and leaders fear being seen as weak. At the same time, business groups warn that escalation could mean layoffs, price hikes, and shrinking economies. This is Europe's central dilemma: how to defend itself without making things worse. The showdown reverberates far beyond Europe and the US. Other countries worry they could be next. Japan and Canada urge restraint, fearing their own exports may become collateral damage. China sees the dispute as a chance to strengthen its own trade ties with Europe. International institutions like the World Trade Organization warn that escalating tariffs could damage the entire global system. Trade wars have no winners, says a WTO spokesperson. They only deepen uncertainty and slow growth worldwide. Alliances are tested. Europe needs America for security, especially with the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. Yet, economic self-defense is also critical. We cannot allow our industries to be destroyed, says a Swedish defense analyst. But we also cannot risk breaking the alliance that protects our continent. The world is watching. The next steps will shape not just trade, but the future of international cooperation. Faced with crisis, Europe begins to look for new options. Leaders discuss deepening trade ties with Asia, Latin America, and Africa. Diversification is our best defense, says Dutch Prime Minister Eva de Vries. The EU accelerates talks for a free trade agreement with India, and renews efforts to finalize deals with Mercosur and South America. European companies ramp up investments in homegrown innovation and green technologies. There is talk of a continent-wide push to strengthen supply chains and reduce reliance on American technology and finance. Experts stress the need for resilience. Europe must innovate, diversify, and unite, says Dr. Stein. Only then can it weather this storm, and the next. As the world watches, Europe stands at a crossroads. The choices made now will shape its future, and the fate of global trade, for years to come.